All right, let's go ahead and get straight into our analysis on these prospects. I think we have 8 that we're going to discuss today. Might throw in a few more at the tail end of it, but 8 guys that look like they're going to be the potential first-round guys on the first day of the draft. And first one is the Alabama tackle, Evan Neal. So we're going to begin with Evan Neal, a guy who, bring it up here, 6'7", 350 pounds. The guy is enormous as an offensive tackle. Has a lot of great size and athleticism. He was a top recruit going out of IMG Academy. And then, of course, obviously going and landing with Alabama, one of the premier, maybe the premier college football program in the country. Just coming out of there where, they produce talent time and time again coming out of Alabama, especially on the offensive line. Pass protection, an area that he can improve on, in my opinion. Not really, as you would expect to be the top tackle in past years, how, perfect of a prospect they are in years past. You think about last year with Penny Sewell and also Rashawn Slater coming into the draft. Those guys look near perfect as you can get. But Neal still looks like a guy who's going to be an instant day one starter on the offensive line and easily going to fall in that 1 to 3 pick range in the first round.
You're talking about big guys. Evan Neal is a big man. Now, that's his strength and his weakness. Now, he lost 15 pounds over the offseason, which has made him a lot quicker, which is good. But, considering how big he is, weight could be an issue down the line. So he's got to be able to keep that good weight that he's at right now if he wants to continue to succeed. But no, he's great in the run game. He's going to be a great pass protector if he can improve his technique just a little bit. But I'm interested to see where he goes because there's been a lot of conversation about him through this process. He's been moving a lot. At one point we thought he was going 1 to the Jaguars, but then they re-signed Robinson. And, we're not sure anymore. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. But I agree. I think he's a 1 to 3 guy. I don't think he's getting past Houston.
Yeah, and the big thing, with his size, how massive he is, 6'7", 350. People are wondering how well he was going to adjust in the NFL to NFL pass rushers. You got guys coming off the edge like Myles Garrett who are just absolute freaks. How is he going to be able to step up in year one as a rookie and handle those guys? But watching his tape, I thought he did a good job using his length against power rushers, more of like a Max Crosby type or a Chandler Jones, both guys on the Raiders now. But just that's what I think of with power rushers or, the speed guys like a Myles Garrett to watch out for. He also had great foot quickness, on the edge of that offensive line, being able to get around and really anchor those guys, on the outside of the offensive line. There were times watching it where I felt like, he kind of sinked his weight a little bit on the edge, got a little bit too aggressive pursuing a guy and, over lunged and, completely just missed a block at times. But overall, all those negatives aside, great prospect. You're going to really build this guy the way you want to, and he's going to be a quarterback's best friend on the offensive line. You talk about, I'm wearing the Packers shirt here today, a left tackle quarterback relationship, like David Bakhtiari and Aaron Rodgers for my Green Bay Packers. That's important for a team and for a quarterback. And you talked about how he had the Jaguars initially at the beginning of this process, getting Evan Neal first overall, because that'd be great, for a guy like Trevor Lawrence, a young quarterback in this league. But Houston, the same way. And, a lot of teams in that top 5 definitely need a tackle to protect their young quarterbacks. Daniel Jones with the Giants, Zach Wilson with the Jets, even Davis Mills. If you want to build around him in Houston, here's a guy that's going to be a focal point of that offensive line from day one. So I like the guy, and I like how he is being rightly placed here at the top 3 to 5 in this year's draft.
And there's one thing that I think gives him a huge advantage is the fact that he played at Alabama and he gets to play against the top talent in college football. So he's been able to go against the Aiden Hutchinson. He's been able to go against just the top edge rushers in not just this class, but just in college football as a whole. So he's going to have a huge advantage on some of these other guys that just don't get to play that kind of level of competition. he's going to be able to know what he needs to do to improve. And that's going to be something that coaches are going to look at and say, look, he's already faced this elite talent. He's been able to face the guys that these other teams that we're playing against, they're drafting them this year. So he just kind of has that one little advantage of being that much better than the others that he got the Alabama offer. So that I think that's huge for him going into this process.
And the one thing, I think is the new trend in the NFL this year, and something that's going to be a little bit of a knock on Evan Neal. And it's something that, honestly, I think would have made Rashawn Slater the top offensive lineman last year, who should have been drafted over Penny Sewell. And it's the versatility of the offensive line that teams are valuing a lot, more especially in the past few drafts. And I think that's not going to change. I think that's going to continue for the future of the league. Versatile guys up front that can play, 3 to even 5 positions. But Evan Neal, mostly Alabama, just started at right and left tackle. Never went inside at guard. So it's going to be interesting to see how teams value that. But I mean, like I said, you're just as good as your left guard is at quarterback, your left tackle is at quarterback, protecting your blind side. So still huge value in the position, but it's something that will affect him compared to other prospects that maybe one guy in particular might leap above him. And it might be this guy over here behind me.
Yeah, definitely. And again, that makes complete sense. You look at guys like Ickey, who we're going to talk about later, guys like Bernard Raymond, who can really play multiple positions. And we've seen that throughout the NFL now, just with it. Your guy, Billy Turner, didn't he play all 5 positions on the offensive line for the Packers last year?
It was Elton Jenkins.
Elton Jenkins. Elton Jenkins played all 5 positions for the Packers when everybody kept getting hurt. And that's what teams need. They don't want a guy that can just play in that one singular position. Now, it's great to have a guy that can be your cornerstone left tackle and can be that, but you want to be able to have the opportunity to move him around, because in 3 years, he might not be the guy that you want at left tackle, but he has the skill to be able to play in another position. But if he is not able to convert his play to that position, it's going to hurt him in the end.
Mm-hmm, for sure. There's still easily a market for left tackles. I mean, you look at the contract that Teron Armstead got this year with the Miami Dolphins. That lets you know that teams are still valuing the position very heavily. Like the Jaguars, franchise tagging Cam Robinson, making sure that he's locked in place for at least another year is important to consider. But let's move on to the guy we just briefly talked about. Talk about him more heavily, and it's Akeem Ekwonu out of NC State, our next guy on the board here, talking about these big guys on the offensive line. And Ickey is the guy that you want as a multi-tackle guard offensive lineman, experienced playing it all at NC State, a guy who has a nasty play style that I absolutely loved. He was on Good Morning Football, I believe, this week, talking about his pancakes that he had at NC State, getting syrup bottles for every single pancake. And by the end of his time at NC State, had over 200 syrup bottles from the amount of pancakes that this guy had. This guy's thick, powerful, pass protection, quick, has a great punch to stun edge rushers. A lot to like about Ickey Ekwonu, especially for me. The dual position ability at both guard and tackle is something that I really like about Akeem Ekwonu.
And talking about versatility, not can he play inside and outside, but he can pretty much fit into any offensive scheme that you want to run. He's a good run blocker. He's a good pass blocker. And he just offers he's just a fit in any team that wants him. So you go up there and you need an offensive lineman. Doesn't matter what position, what scheme you're running on offense. He's a guy that can fill a hole for you immediately. And I love him. He's quick. He's really flexible. He's got good acceleration. For a big guy, he's quick. And that's something that you love to see in an offensive lineman, especially an interior guy, being able to get to the outside if needed to get that lead block on a pull. It's really good. So I'm excited for him. He's a guy that if the Jaguars don't go Evan Neal at 1, he's a guy that could possibly leapfrog Evan Neal and go to a team like the New York Jets, like the Giants, like the Texans, who aren't desperate need of a cornerstone left tackle. They're not in desperate need of it. They're more of a guy that needs to fill a spot immediately, a guy that can play where they need. So Ickey Ekwonu could be that guy if the Jaguars are not the ones to take Evan Neal.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, from what I've been reading, especially the last 2 days, is that Doug Peterson is absolutely blown away by Ickey Ekwonu and would love to have him in Jacksonville. But I think the problem is Trent Baalke just can't justify taking him at number one. And I think that's when there's a lot of smoke right now this past week about Travon Walker trying to get someone to get juiced up to move to one to allow the Jaguars to slide back and take Ickey Ekwonu and incur a couple more picks in the process. That's what I've been reading, through the smoke, through the tea leaves. I think is what they want to happen. The problem is I don't think they're going to find a suitor for that number one pick that is going to try to jump above them to bite on an Aiden Hutchinson or a Travon Walker at one. And I honestly don't know if the Jaguars are going to risk taking Ickey at one instead of one of these top two defenders. But there's definitely some interest there. But like you said, if he doesn't go to the Jaguars, easily going to go 4 to the Jets. Team up with Elijah Vera Tucker, who they took last year in the first round. They already got Mekhi Becton, who they're high on at left tackle. Or also the Giants as well. Just need more help on that offensive line. A multi-positional guy, dual position ability, someone that they would really love to have. And you talked about the speed. I mean, also the size. 6'4", 320. Not as big. 30 pounds less than Evan Neal when he weighed in. But still, he has the speed and size where he can play edge, but also has the speed where he can pull, like you were saying, at guard, some outside run plays, that type of stuff. So a lot to like about this guy. He's going to come in and be phenomenal in the league, multi-time Pro Bowler, in my opinion, for years to come.
There's no question about it. I think he could possibly be the most talented offensive lineman in this draft. I think, obviously, as we mentioned, Evan Neal has the size. He's got the skill. He's got the big-name Alabama team. He's got that. Ickey Ekwonu, he's got the potential. He's got the quickness. He's got all the skill necessary to play the position. So I'm excited to see where these two guys go. As you said, I think both of them could be multi-time Pro Bowlers. Both of them going to be all pros at some point, I think. Ickey Ekwonu, I think, is going to end up being the number one tackle that comes out of this class.
Yeah.
Offensive line.
Yeah, for sure. It could even be the best tackle if that's where they decide to put him at.
Yeah.
But one thing, I'm the guy of negatives over here. We've learned the last 3 weeks.
Hey, you got to talk about it.
Yeah. But one thing I have noticed watching the tape with Ickey, I talked about how he has a nasty play style. Sometimes that does get the better of him. Sometimes can be a little too aggressive at times. That he needs to cut it a little bit more control over that. Try not to get some penalties or over lunge, that kind of stuff. But football character, he's great. I mean, this guy, everyone loves him. The coaches rave about him, players rave about him. His interviews are fantastic. I loved him this week on Good Morning Football. He would be a guy I would draft if I was a GM with one of the top 5 picks. I would make sure to go out of my way to get this guy if he's there on my board.